Thank you, Richard, for the introduction, and thank you for welcoming me here at EXPO. So this is actually the 7th real estate report that we've done. We've looked at everything from global investors to real estate in the digital age. And one thing that's been apparent over the last 7 years is that the real estate sector really has been turned upside down. And some traditional asset classes have now been sidelined in favour of beds, sheds and meds. Now, we looked at sheds in our report last year, so this year we decided to look at beds and the future of urban living. We polled over 200 real estate professionals. They look after portfolios worth in excess of £3 billion. We interviewed some key players in this field, both in the UK and Europe, names that you'll recognise there. And in the biggest poll that we've ever done, we gathered the views of over 6,000 people across Europe on what they wanted from where they lived. And we chose these 6 cities, they're vibrant markets. They're at different stages of their journey when it comes to the residential sector. And what's actually really interesting at the moment is with investors really starting to feel the heat in the UK, it's these European cities that are looking like a really attractive alternative investment to London post-Brexit. So looking at what our consumers thought, ownership is still the preference. That was particularly the case in the UK, where our rental market is less developed. If you compare it to, say, Berlin, actually 85% of people there rent. But interestingly, rates of home ownership have fallen more in the UK over the last 10 years than any other European nation. And if we split the sample down by generation, it's even more interesting. 72% of iGens think that home ownership is less important. And indeed, 56% of all of our consumers agreed with that. So I think times are definitely changing, and perhaps our home won't always be our castle. So let's just think about what's driving this. Affordability is clearly a big thing, and really quite shocking, but 67% of our consumers were either in debt or just about breaking even every month. So clearly saving for a deposit really hard, regardless of where you are in Europe with house prices rising. If we take the UK, for example, in London, house prices are now 13 times the average salary. But this conversation isn't just about house prices. And I really like this quote here from one of our interviewees. He talks about renting being the natural progression of the subscription society. We just don't own anything anymore. So why else do we rent? We like the all-inclusive offering, not needing to worry about repairs and maintenance, and of course, flexibility. What are the pitfalls to renting? Well, the biggest one was unresponsive landlords, and that was particularly the case in the UK, where, of course, traditionally our market has been based on a buy-to-let one. And that's where I think institutional investors will have the most impact, because with build-to-rent comes more consistency, more professional standards, and really the scale to invest in technology that will really enhance the tenant experience. But do our real estate professionals really understand what it is that consumers want from their homes? Well, not always. Everybody did agree that the most important thing was superfast broadband, although we were a little bit out of sync in some other areas. So, for instance, the real estate sector overestimates the importance of good transport links. And perhaps in today's mobile society, it's not all about location, location, location anymore. We underestimated the importance of recycling and sustainability, of leisure amenities, and actually my favourite one was over permission to keep pets. One other thing I just wanted to touch on is the importance of community. The UN estimates that by 2030, 60% of us will live in cities. but cities can lead to isolation and disconnect in society. So there are two particular subsectors that I think are really challenging this issue. The first one is co-living. This is the collective in London. It ticks all of the boxes. It's all-inclusive, great services, fantastic use of technology. But what I think really sets it apart is how they use the shared space and their events programme to really bring about that sense of community that we're all looking for. At the other end of the scale, we have retirement living. And that's a little bit of an untapped market in the UK. Yet 61% of our consumers said that they were prepared to rent in retirement. So demographics suggest that demand will continue to grow, yet supply is very low. So no surprise then that retirement living was the most hotly tipped of all of the bed sectors amongst our real estate professionals. But the issue is perhaps getting the right product. Do you want the self-contained retirement village, or do people in later living want to live in communities mixed in with other generations? But I think whatever part of the bed sector that you're involved in, one of the key defining things with this sector is that promise of stable and secure income. It's resilience to the economic cycle, because of course wherever we are on this crazy journey, we do all need to have a roof over our heads. Thank you.